Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mary, Wieden, and You this morning. Hope you are okay in the fog. It was pretty bad. Like the reservoir kind of disappeared when you're coming across on Spill Road. You don't even see it. A lot of things. So I hope that things are improving, and I hope that you've been very careful as you've been driving around. You're going to meet a really interesting man who wants to be the next mayor of Jackson in a couple minutes. But first of all, the sad news about the weekend still continues to reverberate through the community. And it was the god-awful incident Sunday night on Midway Road, where a deputy, Martin Shields Jr., was murdered by a man who ended up getting killed by, well, don't know really. They don't know if it was self-inflicted or if it was with a deputy, but it was one of those awful things that happens. It was a domestic call. Those are always the worst for law enforcement, and sure enough, this one was just the absolutely worst. A 42-year-old guy named Eric Brown was the man they were looking for. There were a couple women in this house, and somebody called. Anyway, Eric Brown, he was the perp, and he's dead. And he was arrested 25 times for felonies and misdemeanors, never served one day in jail. That's another whole thing, isn't it? But I was watching TV, and I knew that this had happened. And I turned on Channel 3 and started off with the weather, and I thought, no, that's not the story. The story is this. And I turned to Channel 16, and I believe they were the only ones that had live with Sheriff Tyree Jones. And he was obviously heartsick and heartfelt. He was holding it together as well as he could, and it was very, very hard for him, you could tell. And I think it's the first time that he'd lost a deputy, and it was just awful. His struggle is the community struggle. It's the family struggle. It's everybody's struggle. This beautiful deputy had been, he worked at Jackson State, he worked at Jackson Police and Ridgeland Police Department, and of course accolades coming from all over the place in the wake of his tragic death. And the investigation will continue into more of the details of how this all unfolded, but anyway, hearts are sick around here. I mean, it just doesn't matter where you live. And this happens too many around the country, and it has happened here, and it's sad. So offer our prayers. That's the best we can do to everybody involved in that. So now we have here, I'm going to introduce to you Lieutenant Colonel Timothy Henderson Hoover, as he goes by. He wants to be the next mayor of Jackson, and I'll tell you what, welcome.
Thank you.
And I may end up calling you Colonel, but you have a resume that is just unbelievably accomplished in all phases of leadership and systems analysis and so on. It's things that I can hardly pronounce, or at least of all understand what you do, that you have done with the military for 24 years. Let's see, you grew up in the Delta, and you went to Valley.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and we talked yesterday. I said, I hope you saw Valley's band on Inauguration Day and how impressive they were.
They were. They did a great job.
They sure did. I was like, yay! I was like, why don't we hear about them? I mean, I'm happy for the Sonic Boom and all that. They're here, but who knew that Valley had such a fabulous band and huge and accomplished and really, really good. Did you see them?
I did. Valley has been in a rebuild for the band, and so that was a year or two into them having to rebuild basically from scratch.
Well, they've
done a great job in rebuilding that band.
Yes, I thought that was great, and I thought about them. I thought, gosh, I wonder if they raised enough money to get there. And I was thinking this, and I was watching TV, and I was watching NBC, and Lester Holt said, "We're going to take a break here, but when we come back, there's a band from Mississippi yet to play." Like, it's got to be them, and I guess they raised the money to do that. So that was a good thing too.
I think what's important. And what Valley did in going to the inauguration, what Jackson State did going out to the Rose Bowl, is a representation of what Mississippi really has to offer.
Yes.
And they both had great showings in their respective locations, and there are just accolades coming in from across the nation. And as all Mississippians should desire, anybody that goes outside of Mississippi should be the best representation we have to offer.
Absolutely. Well, think of the people who came here, who have come here, who go, oh, this is lovely. This is a beautiful place. Yes, but it's the national reputation brought on by the media, and boy, are they having a hard time struggling to stay alive. NBC is about falling apart. And I didn't even realize that Nora O'Donnell, such a snobbish woman, has been gone since last August. She's not anchoring. It's two guys. Dickerson is one. His mother was a famous newscaster a long time ago, and I don't know who the other guy is. But anyway, the media, they stick you with the reputation, and then they won't let it go. It's like the Weather Channel years ago referred to Mississippi as a land mass. was in the wake of Katrina. Oh, yes. And Phil Bryant was the governor at the time, and I think he chastised them. Somehow, I don't know how he got hold of them, whether it was a phone call or what it was. But honestly, they skip over, and they'll skip over Mississippi a lot anyway, but the land mass. But really, there's so much to offer. The North has got mountains and hills that people probably don't know about, and all, the growth and development due to Memphis. And then the central part of the state, we've got government and other things, but the Gulf Coast, and then of course there's Hattiesburg with all that, the pine forests, etc. And then the Gulf Coast, which is like, how different is that? And then the Delta, which struggles. But it's like, how do you, all these things in one state?
So here's what I've learned, having traveled the world. And
you have traveled you have gone from, you told me yesterday, you have gone from Starkville to Korea and places in between.
Oh, I have. I returned back to Mississippi intentionally. Mississippi is a place that is very diverse in its culture, in its food, in its entertainment, in how it governs. Mississippi is a very diverse and exciting place to be. And I have told people, here was the gotcha moment for a lot of people. My call sign is Hoover.
Yes, what's that? Like he vacuumed up the mess? No?
Well, I picked up a reputation for cleaning stuff up.
Oh, you just... Boy, have you got a job ahead of you. Should you win this election, mister? I'll tell you what. Oh,
and so
Lordy.
I found that once I got tagged with that name, it kind of precedes me, and I find myself in places. And honestly, there are people that look for me on the military site when they're trying to send emails, and they go, I've been looking for you. I can't find you. Hoover, what's... And I go, well, my first name is Tim. Oh, Hoover's not your name? So most people only know me as Hoover. But having to clean things up. And so having traveled the world to come back to Mississippi and be intentional in wanting to provide and dedicate my service to the people of Jackson, this is what I believe. I believe we're at a juncture where Jackson can be the capital city that it needs to be for all Mississippians. And as strong as your capital is, so goes the state.
It's pretty logical. Logical.
It is. It's a building block, right?
Yes.
And so I believe that we are having successes across the state, but I believe that we can realize even more success when the city of Jackson, which is the capital, is booming and vibrant, and folks are welcomed into the capital, and all of the citizens in the capital are valued, and the reputation from the citizens that live here is, man, I love my city. I love Jackson, Mississippi. The surrounding municipalities are all in partner with us. I think that there is so much great opportunity at this point.
You are absolutely right. I've been looking, by the way. I was just looking here on the computer. I'm looking for comments on the computer. I'm not finding because this.
Oh,
computer.
It's fine. It's fine.
Well, no, Hoover, you might have to come and make this computer work for me. But anyway, yeah, absolutely. I can't remember who was it who said on the show not so long ago. Jackson could have been Nashville, but we didn't.
Still can be.
Well, with all the talent that's here, just the talent that's here alone is amazing.
I've learned, Mary, in every organization I've been in, and just like Jackson, everything you need is already here. The key to leadership is finding the strengths that people have, pulling those out, recognizing wherever they have challenges, and building them up in those areas. The same thing goes for the city. Our strengths, building up where we have our challenges, and at the end of the day, everybody's better for it.
I should tell the audience, too, among your other things was that you were 24 years as an Air Force officer, retired as a lieutenant colonel.
Yes, ma'am.
You went through ROTC at Valley, and then you got your commission when you graduated. Well, Burt Case did the same thing at Ole Miss. He went through Air Force ROTC and got his commission, too.
You know what's interesting about that? And we didn't get on this yesterday.
You guys are Air Force guys. No.
Well,
I'm an Army brat. What do I know?
Well, I'm going to come back to that. I actually started out in the Army Reserves. I did. My mother, I wanted to go to the military. And so in my high school senior year, I turned 17 in December In January, my mother had to sign the papers for me to join the Army Reserves.
Really?
And I graduated from high school on a Monday. On a Wednesday, I was on my way to basic training.
Wow, congratulations. Where'd you go?
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I was a 12 Bravo combat engineer. And I was a combat engineer in the Army Reserves. It was a unit up outside of Clarksdale in Lyons, Mississippi. And so the entire time I was in college, I actually was in the reserves. And when I joined the ROTC, they were able to take the contract that I had in the reserves and basically do a new contract for Air Force ROTC. And at the conclusion, as I matriculated through Valley, when I graduated, the morning before the actual graduation, I was commissioned as a second lieutenant.
Wow.
And my first assignment was at Mississippi State, recruiting.
Wow.
Recruiting across the state of Mississippi.
Wow. How long did that last? I mean,
It was a one-year assignment.
deal?
And then I went from there to Japan. Yokota, Japan, was there for 3 years, came back.
What did you do in Japan?
I ran, this is interesting, there's a command center. And so the organization on the base that is monitoring everything going on, similar to the command center at JPD. You see everything, you've got cameras, you know what's going on the flight line, you know what's going on in the community. Anything going on came into that one location. So I was a young lieutenant understanding how the military base worked, because at that point, I'm seeing everything coming in. Yeah, I'm getting that experience early.
Absolutely.
So,
jeez.
How police respond, how fire respond, understanding the things that were going on in the community with the young people, with the older folks in the community, understanding how the base actually worked. If you got a gas leak, what does that response look like?
How did that?
Hazmat teams, all of that.
How did you interact at all with the Japanese? I'm sure they were very friendly.
They were very friendly. It was a great assignment. I actually had some Japanese friends that I made while I was there. They'd come by the house. I'd go to their house. You learn customs. You learn how to interact with other people that culturally are not like you. So experiences on how to just get along with folks that you have no idea about who they are, and everybody's learning at the same time. And so I learned something before I left home, though.
Konnichiwa is all I know.
Konnichiwa.
I think it means hello.
It does. The one I remember is domo arigato. That's thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Okay. But I asked you yesterday, we spoke on the speak any German? No, he doesn't speak German.
I love German food.
Oh, do you?
I do.
Ein bisschen Wiener Schnitzel?
Oh, my goodness. Rahmschnitzel?
Ugh, nicht. Ugh. How about Kartoffeln und Steak? Potatoes and steak.
Oh, I love it. Spätzle?
Spätzle?
Mm-hmm.
Nine. No, I lived over there as a military, but we ate American food pretty much. You know, we lived with the Germans. We lived in a neighborhood. My parents said, look, you can't live with Americans all the rest of your life, but while we're here, we're going to live with the Germans. And in school, as a kid, you take it as a class, which is good. So I learned it. My dad learned it on his job. He learned it so fluently. He was once hunting with some men. Some were from southern Germany, some were from northern Germany, and they were having trouble communicating with each other. And my dad was translating between them.
Oh, wow.
And one of the northern guys said to a southern friend, who's this guy here? What does he know? And the German guy said, he's not even German, he's an American. So, I mean, that's weird. But anyway, that's how that was. But
that's awesome.
But their food was like a little heavy for me.
It was heavy?
Yes.
There was one time I would love to eat German food. When I was stationed in Colorado, there was this great German restaurant. And I actually, we're talking about German food. I like to eat, right? I just...
yeah, but you all should know he's a very slender man. You're about 6'4". 6'4", very slender. He's not... It didn't stay with you.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I got to get back to working out though. This campaigning has been just a little stressful, but not too bad.
This ain't nothing compared to what it's going to be like.
Oh, it's going to be.
Should you win?
It's going to be easy.
Easy?
Yeah.
It'll be 24/7, and who knows what all it will be.
It'll be okay. Not anything I'm not used to already.
Who have you reached out to by way of officialdom, like police and fire chiefs? I'm sure. City council members, for instance, and the water guy.
I have. I've talked to Ted Henderson. He and I sat down and talked. I've talked to a lot of the folks you just talked about.
You need them all.
You do. And I sat down with Ted Henderson, and just to understand, and I think I'm the only candidate. I've not heard any other candidates say that they've talked to Mr. Henderson.
I would like to talk to Mr. Henderson, but not having any luck. Maybe I should call him up and tell him Hoover sent me. But no, but
and it was a great conversation because I wanted to understand his perspective. When you've been in leadership like I have, I'm always willing to give deference, right? To give the other individual benefit of the doubt till I can understand what's going on, because where we sit is our perspective and our view of life. And so in talking to him, he just kind of laid out, hey, Tim, this is what we walked into. He explained the challenge he was up against when he walked into things. We talked about the relationship or lack thereof with the city, the challenges there. And I always ask when I talk to people, I see the issue, but I always want to know from that individual's perspective, what do you believe the solution is?
And what does he believe the solution is? Number one. Number two, do you think he should stay on the job that his department should run the city's water department?
No, I'm not sold on that. Oh. I am sold on gaining a better understanding of the structure he's put in place. Now, I'm a common sense guy, too. If it makes sense, it makes sense. Right now, I don't know enough to be able to really say yes or no, but I do know that what he's doing has been effective.
Well,
right?
he's talking about cleaning up a mess now. He's had to really clean up a mess.
Yes.
And, the thing that's unbelievable for historical perspective is during this water crisis of 2 or 3 years ago or so, I call him Mr. Fuel and Mr. Curtis, the water plants. Mr. Fuel has been around for, 80, 90 years. He saved the day. Mr. Curtis, newbie from, 20 years or so ago, with all his computers and everything, Mr. Curtis failed the city, and we got to take a break here. I'm talking with Tim Henderson. He wants to be the next mayor of the city of Jackson. I hope you will call him at 888-808-8637. You can do that, or you can text him at 601-879-4395, or you can watch us at supertalk.fm/Mary. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We have Tim Henderson. He is a retired lieutenant colonel from the United States Air Force, a man of great distinction. He has things on his bio his resume that I can hardly pronounce, let alone know what he did. But very impressive. Wargaming branch, then chief of command protocol, chief of the Division II program manager, Rapid Response Space Works, which I would love to know about that. Requirements, lead space-based infrared system, and some acronyms here. Commander, Operations in Flight, and then Assistant Director of Operations. That's space as well. Student space and missiles. Then we're getting back to when you were learning, and then learning over here. Aide de camp. Oh, this was at the 7th Air Force. That was in Korea, yes. Mm-hmm. Wow. And then all these other places that he's been. It's so impressive. And I think that you will transfer what you know into running a city, should you become elected. And that will be a challenge, an ultimate challenge. But we'll get to that. Let's talk about, finishing up with Ted Henderson. We're talking about what the city should do. Because usually people pay their water bills, and this water system supports itself. But it shouldn't be hard to bill people.
And he talked about that, right?
He talked about how
the Siemens situation is still having some reverberating effects.
That was the one where if it went from your house, it fed to a way station, I guess, and then the signal went to another station, and then it would get into wherever it goes to the office. Is that correct? I had that described by Robert Miller, who was one of the operations directors. Explained a lot of that stuff. The best way, he said, the best way is to go door to door.
And so that whole thing, people are still suffering from that. Yeah. People are still getting enormous water bills, and Jackson Water is trying to rectify that. I think Mr. Henderson recognized he needed more communication with the community, so he said that he's really doing his best now to really create more of an opportunity for the community to understand.
Well, he had an idea about, if I lived in a little house and you lived in a big house next door to me, you would use more water than I would, or maybe I use a lot of water, but I couldn't afford to pay as much, and that you should take up for me and pay for my water or pay some of it. And I was like, no, we don't want that. It was some kind of idea like that it's whatever you use, you pay for.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I think what we've got to get to, though, is a real – here's what I'm finding, Mary. There are a lot of things happening in stovepipes.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
And people are being told to go do, hey, I need you to do number 1, 2, and 3. And then over here, conversely, you've got someone on the left side going, I need to do 1, 2, and 3. You've got somebody over in this corner saying they have 4, 5, and 6. Leadership requires everybody to be at the table to understand, okay, you may have 1, 2, 3, and I may have 4, 5, 6. Between 3 and 4, there's a connection.
Okay.
You see where I'm going?
Yep,
and so there's some connective tissue there where we need to bring people to the table. And as an example, I'll give you.
Well, not to solve just water, but oh boy.
Yeah, I'm about to give you a great
the
example.
Big one, the big crime situation.
Well, let's deal with infrastructure.
Okay. Yes, that's a good one too.
So the water and roads.
Yes.
So I met with a representative from the 1% Commission, right? Pete Perry. Pete Perry and I sat down a couple of times and had some conversations about, because I wanted to understand, hey, what's going on with the 1% Commission? And we had some very frank conversations, right? After having talked to him and talked to Henderson, I realized that if you could bring those two entities together, even though they have totally separate edicts, but the commonality is infrastructure. I'm not saying it'll go this way, but in my mind, right, I'm a little simple guy.
Right. Simple as a helicopter's engine, exactly. Take a look at the helicopter's dashboard. That's how this guy is.
But I'm a simple guy, I really am. And so if I could get those two gentlemen in the room and me as the mayor of the city, and we come up with a real plan that says, you've got water, you're replacing water pipes, you're replacing sewer. And oh, by the way, as the city, I still need to figure out my stormwater drainage. Nobody's talking about that.
Oh, but they are. Isn't that the one where there's a what's the word I'm looking for? Something EPA anyway has been watching and finding the city over the sewer pipes that are leaching out.
So that's the sewer. So
yes.
Mr. Henderson has water. He was given that first.
Consent decree, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, he was given water and he was given sewer, but he doesn't have storm water. We got water backing up all over the city when it rains.
Oh dear.
So now there's still a challenge there. Now nobody's talking about this, but me, I'm just a simple guy, so I'm looking like, okay, what's the real? What are we trying to get done? Because I'm at identify the problem. What are my possible solutions?
What do you do about that storm
So
water?
when I bring, because now I've got pipes under the ground. I'll just say it like that. And the 1% Commission has roads on top. What happens when the city, Jackson Water, 1% Commission come together and say, hey, these are our challenges. Who's going to pay for what and how do we get this fixed? Because in theory, this is theoretical, in theory, if Jackson Water has the money for water and sewer, now as the city, I know I still got to do stormwater drainage. And I've got 1% Commission with roads. Why don't we have a plan that looks at all three of what you got to do underground and fix it? And then Jackson, the 1% Commission comes in and says, based on this plan, when you guys dig up the water, the sewer, and fix the stormwater drainage, now we'll lay the roads on top. What does that do? See, I tell you it's simple, right? For me.
Yeah, real simple. Well,
this is Tim talking.
And I got another simple one for you. I don't think to this day that there is a comprehensive, up-to-date schematic of the whole system, of the roads, the water, and the pipes. For instance, if you think you got a water leak over here, well, that was in a map from 1953, but the problem is really a block away, stuff like that. There's no, and it should be computerized. And it should have a backup print, but you don't have that yet.
So why am I thinking like this? When I was in Korea, that 3-star I worked for, he had 2 Air Force bases under him, plus other geographically separated locations. And in all of those instances, you had what we consider public works in the city. So I served in a role similar to his CAO, right? Where I'm watching everything, understanding what needs to happen, keeping the boss informed. So you had public works departments that was responsible for water, sewer, utilities, lights on the base, everything. Oh, by the way, those entities had to work with Koreans to get a lot of their work done, too.
Ooh, good luck
Because the base is not self-sufficient by itself. Right. You're in Korea. So you have these host-tenant agreements that are signed, and my boss was responsible for the host-tenant agreement for Korea. So I'm working at a level where I see all this playing out. I'm in the room when decisions are made. I'm making recommendations to my boss. I'm following up on things. So when you look at public works, they're called civil engineers in the military, in the Air Force. They're civil engineers.
Yeah, we got them in real life, too.
You do,
Civilian
right?
life. Yeah, we do.
Civil engineer squadron, they're responsible for utilities. They're responsible for the housing on base. They're just responsible for public works as we understand it. Then you've got law enforcement. You've got security forces on every base. Yes. So now I'm watching how law enforcement is supposed to do things.
Yes.
You see? And so when people ask, your military experience, how does that compare to what you got to do in the city? Well, in reality, every base, and you know this, because you were military.
Army brat.
Right?
Yeah.
Every base is its own city.
Exactly.
It's its own city.
Yes.
Your programs for your seniors, your youth, it's your now in the city, your schools, all of that. Everything's on the base.
PX, commissary, etc. All of it.
All of it.
Yep.
Now you've got different factors when you come into the civilian world, but the basic foundational premise behind all of it is still the same. So when people go,
"Whoa, what do you know?
You're a military guy. What do you know?" Well,
exactly.
Most military folks, if you talk to them and really have a conversation with them, depending on what job they worked in, they can have this kind of conversation. So a guy like me walks in and says, I ask questions that people don't expect me to ask, Mary.
Good.
So you go back to the infrastructure. So as a simple guy, I go, I got somebody responsible for roads already. I got somebody working my water. Wait a minute. I need to be figuring out my stormwater drainage.
Yes.
All three of us need to sit down and talk.
Okay.
I'm not asking anybody to change what they're doing, but that comprehensive plan.
Well, where does that stormwater go to? Where is it supposed to go to?
Well,
and where does it go to now?
In Pearl.
It goes to Pearl?
Pearl River.
The Pearl River. Well, yes.
Yeah. Right? It drains off the city.
Doesn't it go to the that place, Savannah Street? I've been thinking of sewer water as opposed to sewer water as opposed to storm runoff, though. Storm runoff goes through there to the Savannah Street
and we've got
treatment
pipes.
plant.
That's something I can't answer. I'd have to ask
Well, you got to
that
get into the
question,
Savannah Street plant. That's a living, breathing disaster.
Yeah, I've been told some things.
And when it has problems, they say don't go swimming or fishing below Savannah Street. You can't. You have to stay out of the water. That's something else. Then Rankin County, which used to pay about $1 million a year or something like that, quit that plant and built its own. Unbeknownst to those of us who have to pay the bills, but they've gone, and that is a real sticky wicket, that one.
So what we've got to do in the city? What's the solution? Right? You've got to
clean it up.
You got to get the right talent,
and you got to pay them.
There you go. So so the question becomes, Hoover, what are your priorities? And so my vision for the city is wrapped in Jackson 2035.
Okay, that's your.
A 10-year plan.
Okay.
You got to have a plan. You got to have something that you can put goals and
you got to show that plan to the
objectives.
people. They got to see what you're talking about. They got to see it.
Exactly. And so I was up this morning because
you couldn't sleep. Right?
Yeah. And so just adding to, for example, one of the goals, and I don't want the listeners to hold me to this, but I want them to understand how I'm thinking. Public safety is my number one priority. And the focus area there are youth, seniors, persons with disabilities, our most vulnerable sector of society. As you focus on making them safe, the entire community becomes safe. Right?
That's the hard part.
Get to the basics of who you're trying to protect and keep safe.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, break time. We got one more segment when we come back. This is Tim Henderson. This is one of those hours that's flying by so fast.
It is. You said that.
We need to borrow another couple of hours here, but you can always come back. It's Mary, Wieden, and you, and this is Tim Hoover Henderson, who would like to be your mayor. So we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Our final segment with Tim Henderson, running for mayor of the city of Jackson, a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force, a nickname Hoover because he cleans things up. Literally, got that reputation. Lived all over the world. Native Mississippian, grew up in the Delta. But how long have you been back in Jackson?
I moved to Jackson. Air Force moved me to Jackson, the area, in 2014. I ran the Air Force ROTC. Watch this. You ready, Mary? Training leaders for the nation.
Those. Oh, anybody we know?
No, I don't think anybody you know at this point. They haven't become famous yet.
You know, I'll tell you. Oh, really? The thing that just made me ill in the last few years was General, I call him Milli Vanilli, General Milli. I don't know what he was, Army? I guess he's Army. And I'm not sure what his title was, but I'll never forget the day he said.
Former chairman.
Well, he said, I'm so anxious to learn about my white privilege. What the hell has got to do
He actually said that?
Yes, he actually said that. He actually said that and got away with it and was never questioned or anything like that. I think he's gone. If he's not gone, he should be getting to go. But that's the kind of stuff as a military man that I don't think you would have put up with that for very long.
No.
That's not what we do.
What I tell people, though, is one thing I learned being in the Air Force, being in the military, is the military is still a representation of what happens in our society. The key is there are policies, regulations in place to check behaviors. You can't change people's heart. Only God can do that. So you want things in place that kind of keep people's behavior in check. You can't cover it all, but that's what makes the military what it is you still accept people, knowing that there are differences of perspective, opinion, views on life, etc. But the thing that unifies people, which we're going to bring to the city of Jackson, is what is the common goal we're trying to achieve.
And what is it? To
make Jackson a family-centered city.
Is it going to be?
I say family-centered, but family and singles, because if you can make it family-centered, folks want to come and live in Jackson.
And you got to make it safe, and you got to make it fun.
Safe and fun, right?
Yeah, we got to have those things.
Opportunities, economic opportunities, folks to get a livable wage, earn a livable wage, not just minimum wage. We've got to begin to have some levers in place that we can turn and give people an opportunity to earn what they should be capable of earning, so that it improves their quality of life.
And I think that brings in, doesn't it, the private business industry?
It does.
I mean, people, they talk about the wages in Mississippi. Well, if you look at government figures, that's one thing. I mean, there have been people who've left broadcasting to go work for the state because they can make more money working for the state of Mississippi. Now, yes, honest to God. And that, it needs to come down to private industry. And
the way you attract private industry, and I talked to some folks, right, about economic development and opportunities. I had an economic roundtable.
Oh, good one.
And I'll tell you, I'm a unifier. All right. I had Democrats at the table, Republicans at the table, black, white, whatever. That's right. Men, women. At this point where we are, everybody has to come to the table with solution sets that are plausible and feasible. And it takes more than one group here and one group over there. Everybody has to come to the table. And we've got to break down. Now, here's one thing I know I got to do. We've got to break down these walls of distrust. I'm an honest guy. I'm going to always share with you what I'm thinking, what my perspective is. That, again, the thing that makes the military great is those shared perspectives can be put on the table. Now, people can't get in their feelings if it's not picked. We've got to be mature adults and say, okay, that's the best option. Let's go get it.
I was going to say, after the talk comes the doing. Then you got to do it.
We got to go do it.
It's got to be done. And the big thing, I think, in Jackson, the infrastructure is pretty bad. Mm-hmm. I mean, geez, come on. But you got to have water and you got to have good streets. But crime, you got to feel safe. And I think that I think Joseph Wade is doing the best he can to make a lot of that happen.
He is.
He has the murder rate has been cut from 10 a month to maybe 5 or less a month. Month of February, I don't know, I haven't kept track of it, but it's not been like it was, and that's good. But that all starts not from the police, because we've all said from time to time, police officers can be walking past a house where somebody's in there murdering somebody or raping somebody, and you don't know. You don't hear anything. You don't see anything. It's not reported. So the police can't do everything. We get that. It has to come from the people.
It does.
And that's the thing. And it's kids who watch their parents drinking and drugging and stuff like that. What do you think they're going to be doing? Duh. And that's the thing. Somebody has got to get a hold of people well, not just young though, because look at the people who are committing crimes are much older than that. This clown Brown was 42 years old doing all these 25 things he's been was arrested for. There has to be something. It's ethos. It's inside.
There you go.
Ethos.
All right,
you like
that's
that?
it. Yes.
It's inside, and people have to understand. No, you don't drink and drug. No, you don't go and steal things. No, you don't get mad at somebody and kill them or knife them with a knife or shoot them with a gun. You don't do that. That's not how it's done. There's better ways to do things. You can't just have a negotiator everywhere you go. But you can't do pipe dream stuff like that. But you have to explain to people respect of people, respect for law.
That's it. And
how do you do that? You got to get to them.
It comes also with more of a presence. I'm a deterrence kind of guy also. I've got a hammer on the back end. People hear me talk about that. I have very little tolerance for you not feeling safe to be able to go to Kroger or wherever you need to go. Once we figure this crime piece out and clean the city up, we're going to see more folks coming in, businesses coming in. So when it comes to crime, we've got to make an investment in these young people. So Jackson 2035, my priorities are 1, public safety. Number 2 is the cleanliness and infrastructure. Number 3 is by virtue, number 3, because it happens, sustained economic growth. How do we grow the economy in the city? But you've got to get crime. Public safety has to be number 1. Our fire has to be included in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? We have very tough conditions that our firefighters are being faced with just when they go in to pull shift. So they're at the top of my list as well, police and fire. What happens when you put police walking the beat again, on segways, on bicycles, developing a relationship in the community, investing in our young people, the programs? Here's something, Mary. You ready?
Ready.
A nonprofit cooperative. That's the tool for public-private partnerships with the city. So we're not resourced at the city with the money we need to do what we need to do.
I was going to say,
you've got to bring people in. I learned a long time ago.
You also don't have a lot of time either.
There you go. So people that are already doing great work, we want them to partner with the city. Now we're working together. And so when we're trying to get at young people and provide them with positive outlooks and provide an alternative to the negativity that they're seeing, now you've got teams of people working together. Here's what I say is the best asset in Jackson, Mississippi. You ready?
Ready.
The people.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
The people are resilient.
Exactly. It's what's
the people those that are there have stayed. The businesses that are there have locked in. Everybody's struggling. I don't care if you're in Eastover, South Jackson. Now, those struggles look different, and some are worse than others. But I believe a focus on South Jackson and West Jackson is going to be different than the focus in Eastover and Fondren. But there's got to be a focus across the city to create a better quality of life for everybody.
Yep.
Otherwise, I don't care how much development you do in one part. If you don't focus on the part where you've got challenges, those people will get desperate enough. And so one of the things I'm focused on is the mental health of the citizens. All the crises that we've gone through in this city,
yep,
you've got to help people see a better day. And so the campaign, I always tell folks, we're looking up and moving forward. And it's a great day to be in Jackson. And we're going to make Jackson a capital city that you, I, everybody that lives here can be proud of, and that all Mississippians are going to want to come to their capital.
Speaking of money, how are you doing on your campaign, money-wise?
Do you want the truth?
Yeah, I would think that would be good.
I take individual donations. This is probably going to blow a lot of people's mind. My sacrifice to the city has already begun. I'm self-financing.
Good. That's good. That's good. You don't. Yeah. It's good not to be beholden. Now, that would be the hardest. One of the hardest things I would think about running for something, because you get, well, if you want to run, if I give you some money, I want you to make sure you do this. I want you to make sure you do that.
I've turned down donations
because of that kind of stuff.
Because I want the flexibility and the freedom. Because I'm going to be the people's mayor. Help me take care of the people. I say, I don't care who makes the money. I really don't. If you can help me provide opportunities for the citizens, that's the only dog in the hunt I got.
Were the people that you were at there was a meeting last weekend, I think it was on Saturday afternoon, were those people, were they hungry for things? What did they want?
They were. They
and this was a mixed crowd too, which was good. I'm so happy to know that.
All the feedback I got, the people that talked to me said, we need your leadership.
They need, but they want you to lead them into, and how what do they want you to lead them to?
They want somebody that understands administration, how to lead organizations, which I have, how to handle budgets in the hundreds of millions, how to make sure that we're prioritized and focus on the things that we need to go do in the near term. That's why the 10-year plan is 10 years to get healthy. But immediately, we've got some things we're going to be focused on. And I mean, right away, day one.
And I got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. Tim Henderson, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll have you back
Mary.
before the 1st of April. And good luck. We'll be back on Friday with our regular show.